First, you will have introduction. I will give some housekeeping and also some expectation. And then we will hear from Linden Edgell from ERM on, we will hear from Julia first from NCSR for the opening. And then Linden Edgell from ERM about why the business case for investing in nature. And then on what we will hear some presentation from Zoe Quiroz-Cullen and also Pak Dharsono Hartono from Katingan Mentaya. And then on the implementation, we will hear from Bruce Kennedy from BCG and also Jenica Gordon from NCSA. And then we will have 15 minutes question and answer. And then we will close the session in 4:30 in Jakarta time. And I also invite Pak Dharsono to give the closing remarks as IBCSD Executive Committee representative. So I would like to invite my colleague to show the housekeeping slides, if you can. So this is the rules or housekeeping for today's session. So this session will be recorded. And for you who haven't changed your name, please change with the name of your company and then follow with your full name. And then for you who don't speak, please mute the microphone. And then if you have comment or if you have question, please raise your hand. And then we also apply the Chatham House rule here. Means that anyone who comes to the meeting is free to use information, but not allowed to reveal who made any particular comments. And then this also antitrust statement reminder for you who are familiar with WBCSD meeting. Maybe you are already familiar with this. So please avoid any discussion or conversation of competitively sensitive topic, such as on pricing, discount, resale price maintenance, as you can see on the slides. And then bid strategies, including bid bridging, group boycotts, allocation of customer market, output decision, and also future capacity addition or reduction. So this is the housekeeping for our discussion. And also for the expectation, our discussion is expectedly can provide information on why and when to use natural climate solution credits. And then also what high integrity, high quality NGS look like, and then how to procure and account the NCS credit. And also we will learn and or hear about the business case for the use of voluntary NCS credit in relation to natural journey. And also we will give information or access to the new NCS procurement hub or an education and support platform for business navigating the procurement process of nature-based carbon credits. So I think that's to start our discussion. Now we will hand it over to Julia Carbon from NCS to give opening. Hand it over to you, Julia.
Thank you so much, Inda, and it's a pleasure to be here today. My role is really to set the scene and then start, invite our amazing speakers to really go into the detail about the business case, the quality, the examples of credits, and what is happening in Indonesia and in your region. So in order to set a little bit the context, I will use some slides, hopefully not too many, but really to give you an overview of where we stand. Let me make sure that I have, hold on. So first of all, I'm the director of the Natural Climate Solution Alliance, and Jenica Gordon, who is also, she's the engine behind this webinar and organizing this, and a number of other things, also works with me in this initiative. The initiative is a multi-stakeholder coalition of like-minded organizations and individuals that are both companies, we have NGOs, and solution providers. And what they have in common is the commitment to catalyze more demand for natural climate solutions carbon credits. So basically a carbon credit that is generated through a natural climate solutions projects or program. The NCS Alliance is convened and supported by the World Business Council, hence you see in our title both WBCSD and NCS Alliance, and is supported by the World Economic Forum and funded by the Women Business Coalition. Just to give you an idea of who are the members, we have, as I said, companies, NGOs, and solution providers. And for example, our colleague Dharsono is also a member, is actually one of the first members of the NCS Alliance. What these organizations have in common is the belief that it is important, it's a really important finance mechanism to catalyze more climate mitigation and biodiversity outcomes. And so the voluntary carbon market, it's a really important approach. And therefore, of course, we have to improve it and companies can play a key role. But this is the common thread among all these organizations. So, and why are we doing this? As I said, we believe, it's not we believe, we know there are three crises, and there is the climate crisis that we know very well about, but there is also a nature and an equity crisis that are equally important, and they need also to be addressed. There are some really important mechanisms that go from one crisis to the other. So, for example, the nature crisis can really not only lead to a loss of nature, but can also exacerbate the climate crisis and equity as well. And business are also impacted by the three crises, by the individual crisis, but again, by the dynamic between the three. And so therefore, this is why we believe this is a really important issue for companies to address, how nature actually can support climate, biodiversity, and equity. But how to do that? We know there is a crisis. We know this has an impact on business, but we also know there is a huge finance gap in order to get to the number of dollars that are needed to address. And here are the finance gap that have been estimated to address the climate in the nature crisis. No, the numbers have not been assessed for the equity crisis, but we are pretty much on the same level. So what is important is that there is a lot of finance missing, and therefore it is critical that we mobilize any source that is available. And so this is where we call companies to take actions beyond their value chain. This is really in addition to their decarbonization commitment, but to really look into how they can address their, how they can contribute to the global nature, climate, and equity crisis by taking actions in addition, with some positive contributions to their business case, including achieving brand differentiation, keeping pace with policy changes. You will hear also about what is happening in Indonesia. More and more countries are also planning to implement regulations to get more companies to invest in beyond value chain actions and secure access to finance. More and more financial institutions and tools such as TNFD and TCFD are asking companies to also disclose what they're doing beyond value chain, putting a value in these actions that are taken beyond the value chain. So in terms of why nature is basically 1/3 of the solution to the problem of climate change, and is more than 20% of emissions today come from land-based sources, and has been estimated that 30% of the climate change mitigation outcomes must come from nature. And I say must, is not could, because we cannot get to climate, to stay within the 1.5 or 2 degrees that we need to stay without nature. And these interventions on nature are kind of in three main categories: are actions to protect nature from further loss. So this is basically the no deforestation commitments, protecting forests, wetlands, and grass type of landscapes. Then there are a second group of actions that is about improving the management of nature, and these are in working land. So including forests, croplands, and grazing lands. And then there is the third area is really restoring native cover, so restoring forest and all wetlands. These are some of the data that have been generated through a study led by Conservation International about the potential and how this potential evolves between now and 2050 for the three main type of interventions where you have protect, manage, and restore. These are really interesting because you look that within these, there are different strategies, right? So for example, there are different strategies in terms of, protection, not deforestation, supply chains, but also very important role that will be played, for example, by the indigenous peoples and local community in protecting their own forests and giving them the right to do that. And the same for management, where improved management has a huge potential. It has the biggest potential by 2050. So these are some of the numbers also shared by the IPCC in their latest assessment, where you see that after solar and wind, the land, water, food solutions, so they're the first three of the second, category. So reduced conversion, carbon sequestration, and ecosystem restoration are the ones that are the solutions that they have the highest potential, also for the lowest cost per ton. So really is where we need to invest. So then the question is, what is the role of the voluntary carbon market? Right, is one of the ways to finance natural climate solutions. So these are solutions that will protect and restore and improve the management of land, but at the same time deliver benefits for people and biodiversity. So this is why we are looking into this, solution that is not just about nature conservation, but we are calling them natural climate solutions. But what is important is to say they are not, the voluntary carbon market is not the only way to finance natural climate solution, but it is an important way. And as we said, we need to mobilize every type of finance for nature and natural climate solutions if we want to generate the potential that nature can deliver for climate change mitigation. So therefore, the key question remains, how do we connect the voluntary carbon market and companies purchasing credits to their journey to net zero? So what we are saying is the priority remains in value chain decarbonization, so abatement measures. But what we are also calling companies is to go above and beyond their unabated emissions, their abatement, internal abatement, and use carbon credits to address what remains on a yearly basis. So we really like this image that we have somehow adapted from the Science Based Target Initiative that looks at what happens on a yearly basis. So you have time, a company lowers their emission in line with their science-based decarbonization pathway, and they get to net zero, right? And then they have the residual emission. But while they do that, there are remaining emissions, which we call unabated, that needs to, we say, do something about those by investing in voluntary carbon credits that are basically measures taken beyond your value chain, but actors that would not otherwise have the finance to take these measures. And this will bring you as a company into the high ambition pathway, right? To do more than just doing your transition to net zero, but taking additional action by financing decarbonization measures taken by actors beyond your value chain. So important actors in this system are the Voluntary Carbon Market Integrity Initiative. We are not having them today as a speaker, but we can definitely organize something in the future. The VCMI is putting together some options for how companies can make claims from the retirement of voluntary carbon credits. At the moment, there are 3 options of claims for claims that have been used in addition to the decarbonization, internal decarbonization. So for companies that are on track with their near-term targets, but they're looking at other options, and these will be released by the end of November. And the other key actor is ICVCM. And I'm stepping a bit faster because I know we are running out of time, is a key actor that defines what are the integrity criteria, so principles and standards for the supply side, and this will be very helpful for companies that want to purchase credits, but they have the question, how do I buy credits that are of high quality, which is not that simple, right? And this is where, as an organization, as NCS Alliance, we have put together some really valuable tools, for example, to help companies identify high integrity and high quality from the climate perspective. So does this project or this credit deliver a real climate mitigation outcome? But also from a nature and social perspective, does this project that has, leads to this credit also have strong biodiversity and people values and outcome? So on this, I like to finish just by basically saying that we can help companies navigate their journey to procurement of high quality natural climate solution credits. We have done a lot of work in identifying the key steps and where companies can really see what are the main actions they can implement along the journey to procurement, and what are the key other actors they can use. Sorry, I'm skipping around slides. What are the other key actors that can help them purchase high quality credits? And there is a number of really important players out there that can help. What is important if our companies to make a commitment to high quality, so to make sure that they actually then sort out, what credit is really going to deliver, not just on climate mitigation, but also on biodiversity conservation and social gains. So on this, I think I'd like to finish by introducing to our colleague, Linden Edgell from the ERM, who has really helped us navigate the question about why buy, right? What is the business case for a company to invest and purchase voluntary carbon credits, and specifically natural climate solution? So found when we did the research together, and where is the business case? Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, and good morning or good afternoon to colleagues on the call. I'm actually coming to you today from Perth, so not far away from our friends in Indonesia. A little bit about ERM first. We are a global sustainability advisory firm. In fact, we've had a presence in Indonesia for a long time, and I've worked quite a bit in Indonesia over the years. So today I'm speaking to you in two ways. One is that ERM as a company, we have purchased natural climate solutions, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And we have also worked with Julia and the team to produce a guide for C-suite executives, which we launched 12 months ago or so, but it still have a great deal of importance as we think about the role of business. So a little bit about ERM first in terms of our journey. We have been reporting on our greenhouse gas emissions for more than a decade. We've published our targets, and we've reported on our performance annually. In around 2017, 2018, we were one of the first professional services firms to set a science-based target. Originally, it was a well below 2-degree target, and then we updated it to be a 1.5-degree target. Recently, we have made a submission to the science-based target to have a net zero aligned target. Now, so that means we are taking a leadership position, and we are aiming to demonstrate the way that we think other companies should progress. As part of our net zero strategy, we therefore we are purchasing natural climate solutions as part of our portfolio of credits, as compensating for the residual emissions that we have in our system as we are on our way to net zero. So our focus is certainly on mitigation, trying to reduce our emissions, but we recognize that we also have a response to make in terms of residual emissions that we still have as we are on our way to net zero. I had to build that business case to our leadership as to why we should make this voluntary contribution at this stage. And so I'll share some of the reasons that we explained for us and for other businesses as well. So next slide, please. So I think the first thing for all of us when we're talking to our leadership and trying to help them understand the role of climate NCS credits or an NCS approach is to think about business risk. Julia has just outlined for us on the risk side what a degraded natural environment means for many of our businesses and indeed for our world. So we will not have the level of certainty in our supply chains, in our assets, management of assets, in terms of water and air quality and all those other things that many of us need for our businesses to be successful. So it's absolutely about thinking about the business risk for our individual companies, but also for the supply chains and the value chains that we are part of. I expect that many of you on the call are also facing stakeholder demands. That might be from your own employees who are wanting you to make a response in terms of climate and nature and people. It might be your investors. It might be your shareholders. It might be government agencies. It might be your suppliers or indeed your clients. Right across the value chain and from different stakeholder groups, we are seeing a real pressure coming on business to be able to have a coherent net zero strategy that also looks at voluntary actions on our way to net zero. And we foresee that this will certainly only continue, and certainly for us, ERM as a company, we're certainly seeing more interest from our stakeholders. I think there's also a real thing about commercial advantage. There is a certain degree of complexity in the carbon markets and understanding natural climate solutions. And so to build that capability in your organization, it requires a team approach. In our own organization, we engaged our colleagues in finance. I'm fortunate that I can draw on experts from across ERM who are experts in biodiversity, who are social specialists, who also come from different parts of the world to understand the different ecosystems and environments. Procurement, to understand that. Certainly our risk team and our strategy team. So for you internally to align all of the different parts of the organization who need to understand this, you need to start early to do that. And to build that capability, we recommend starting small and then building from that. We believe it does bring differentiation in the market, differentiation from your competitors, differentiation when you're engaging the businesses and indeed your supply chain. And again, being able to articulate that you are responding to the emerging global standards, that you are focused on integrity, and that you are thinking about nature, climate, and people allows you to have that differentiation in the market. And there is absolutely a first mover advantage. There is a lot of information out there about the rise in carbon credits as we get closer to 2030 and indeed 2050. And by being early into the markets, by understanding the markets and indeed helping to build the markets, you will have a first mover advantage as we progress. Next slide, please. So the climate finance gap. Again, Julia really set out the money that is needed in order to actually respond to the climate challenge and the nature challenge. And again, from building the business case, being able to demonstrate that for every dollar that you invest into something like nature, the fact that it can also benefit communities and climate shows that return on investment. And again, being part of responding to that nature challenge addresses the business risk. So it's also a way of doing that. We also need to scale investment, and that means that we need more people into the market now and on the demand side, sending the right signal to project developers about this. And with those demand signals coming into the market, that allows the level of investment we need now. Because we all know that trees take time to grow, ecosystems take time to develop. So what gets planted or restored today, that's going to take years to actually deliver the value that we needed. And so we need to really start now and to get the scaling of the markets. And we also believe that collaboration is incredibly important. And that's why we're so active with the Natural Climate Solutions Alliance. It enables us to talk to people right across the ecosystem to understand their challenges. it allows us to ask those questions that you want to around how do we do this with integrity? How do we make those claims that actually have the credibility that's needed? And in this collaborative environment, we are able to do that and to respond to that and to learn together, to challenge together, and I guess set the bar higher and higher so that together we are really promoting this around integrity. And again, Julia mentioned the Claims Code of Practice. Now, this is a really important initiative, and I encourage you to read the consultation draft if you haven't already. We've seen lots of criticism out there from various forms of the media about the role of the voluntary carbon markets. And you know, to some degree, you can understand that. But at the same time, we need these markets to be successful. And the only way that they will be successful is if we are all in there thinking about the business case, looking at the supply side and the demand side, really look at integrity, using all the different techniques and assessment forms and verification and reporting, all in line with things like the Code of Practice to demonstrate this can be done, it can be done well, it can be done with integrity. We must start now, and I really believe that we must work together. So that's the perspective from ERM, who are in the market trying to do take a leadership position, and in terms of what we learned as we put together the guide for the C-suite with the NCSA team and many of you who are probably on this call today. So I'm not sure if I'm going back to Jenica or Julia, but hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Linden.
Well, I will say thank you very much, Linden, for your help, and also to ERM, because as you said, you have helped us also with the research for the C-suite guide, and which we will share later. But also we are really working on something new this year, and we are kind of looking at how investors, so not buyers, but investors need to take special attention to a number of certain issues when investing in NCS projects. So we are really helping to make sure that the entire value chain of an NCS origination has the same level of responsibility and attention. So I will now ask Jenica to take over the facilitation. And Linden, thank you again. Hopefully you're enjoying Down Under.
Thanks, Julia. And yeah, thanks, Linden. Really, really great overview of the business case of why businesses should invest in nature. So now I'd like to hand it over to Zoe Quiroz-Cullen, who is Director of Climate and Nature Linkages at Fauna and Flora International, who's going to tell us a little bit about what we mean when we're talking about high quality NCS. And yeah, hopefully give us some insight into the nature and the social foundations of high quality NCS. Thanks, Zoe.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jenica. And it's a pleasure to be with you all. Thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, like Linden, I've spent time working in Indonesia, and I am delighted to be here today. I work for Fauna and Flora International. We're an international conservation organization working in 40+ countries around the world, protecting and restoring natural ecosystems, working very closely with local community partners, corporates, and government, including in Indonesia. So I guess a very important place to start is really to acknowledge Fauna and Flora's strong support for the work of the Natural Climate Solutions Alliance. We think it's an incredibly important role that the Alliance is playing, supporting the private sector as they navigate the opportunities that exist to invest in nature, to really drive outcomes on climate, nature, and for people. We are, as an organization, extremely supportive of the use of high integrity natural climate solutions when utilized in the ways that have been set out this morning. And it's my task today to present on what are the features of high quality, how do we identify that? And I'm going to focus specifically on the nature and the people dimensions, as climate integrity is obviously critical, but is being explored elsewhere. So if we're thinking about high quality, really, I think the most important thing is to come back to what are these credits and what are these projects aiming to achieve? Fundamentally, we're wanting to invest in high quality outcomes for climate. But how do they originate? Where do they come from? And really what we're trying to achieve, evidently, is reducing rates of deforestation and forest degradation or loss in other high carbon ecosystems. And to tackle those, we need to understand, well, what are the drivers of those loss? Why are those forests or those peatlands, these critical ecosystems being converted or degraded? We know that the drivers of change are many and varied. These ecosystems may be converted to different forms of agriculture. There may be induced impacts related to infrastructure development, for example, roads and other pieces of infrastructure. There are many reasons in Indonesia, like many countries around the world. You know, one of the biggest drivers is unplanned conversion of land to agriculture, driven generally by smallholder agriculture, often in circumstances where there are limited opportunities to pursue more sustainable ways of managing the land, of doing agriculture more productively, and of maintaining the richness of the natural ecosystems that exist. So when we look at the pressures on these natural ecosystems, then we can see that these are all in the human domain, and that work to protect natural carbon stocks is also very much a human process. You know, really what we're trying to achieve through high quality natural climate solutions is a fundamental shift in the nature of local economies, such that these natural ecosystems will enable communities and other local stakeholders to gain when they remain standing, when they are protected. And in doing that, a very high quality NCS will really understand what are going to be the drivers of the change, what are going to be the levers that are going to enable local communities and other stakeholders to make decisions about the land that are going to retain those natural services. And so when looking at potential NCS projects to invest in, or considering also potentially in the investment in the development of new projects, which is also a very important role that the private sector can play in sort of financing the supply of new projects, is being aware that there are many dimensions to consider on the ground. One is understanding, well, what is the vision of that landscape? How can it look different? You know, how can the outcomes be ones of protection of those forests or peatlands, for example, or their restoration and regeneration of formerly degraded areas? That implies having a management plan in place that local stakeholders are fully bought into, in fact, that they have ownership of, and also the capacity to implement that plan. You know, how will sustainable management be achieved in practice? And it also comes with putting in the mechanisms in place for those stakeholders who are on the front line of doing the work to protect those natural ecosystems, but also need to maintain their own livelihood opportunities within that context. Is, you know, what are the mechanisms that REDD+ or other types of NCS can bring forward? For example, opportunities for more sustainable livelihood approaches, access to revenue and services such as education or healthcare or social infrastructure projects. The needs in different places and the levers of change will be very context specific. So the most important thing is that those that are developing the project can demonstrate that they've really understood and involved local people, particularly Indigenous people and local communities, in a very participatory and equitable way. Another element that can be important and that Fauna and Flora has a lot of experience of is sort of creating that foundations for land tenure security, such that the participation of local people has those stronger legal foundations. For example, in Indonesia, work on the clarification of hutan desa or hutan adat as key elements to bring collectively larger areas under sustainable management. Fundamentally, the outcome we're looking for is that for local stakeholders see an opportunity for them to gain when that natural system is protected. Other steps that are critical in the sort of design process and the procurement guidance developed by the NCS Alliance lays this out all very clearly. Key things such as free, prior and informed consent processes have been followed in a full and comprehensive way. that they're not considered one-off exercises, but they're very much based on a continuous process of engagement with local actors that really retains and ensures that long-term commitment to projects. This is critically important, not only in terms of sort of an equity and, reputational quality of the projects, but also in terms of the resilience of that climate outcome. What we really want is to be confident that the climate benefits are going to endure and last into the future. And it's this social fabric and the ecological fabric underneath, in the core design of these projects, which is going to give those outcomes the greatest resilience far into the future. The other thing is also looking at the mechanism for implementation. How much investment is there into sort of building the long-term capacity to maintain those projects, and also to ensure the equity and the transparency around the sharing of benefits into those projects, and particularly ensuring not only that a good benefit sharing mechanism structure is in place, but that those benefits are being tracked and that we understand transparently where they're getting to and how they're being used. So these are all, really important features of high quality projects from a social perspective. From the biodiversity perspective, which obviously speaking from fauna and flora is very important too, but recognizing that ecologically diverse systems are also going to be more resilient. Natural Climate Solutions Alliance is clear that there is a conservation hierarchy, and that prioritizing the protection of existing ecosystems is really critical. We can't afford to lose more nature and replace it. We need to secure the areas that we have, and then also look for opportunities for restoration. So I think my final point before I hand over to Dharsono to talk about a real and excellent example in practice is to reflect on the fact that the people and the nature dimensions of these projects should really be considered core benefits. They're not co-benefits that are optional. They're very much the foundations of strong, high-quality NCS that will deliver those climate benefits, but will also enable companies to consider how they contribute to their nature positive targets, for example, and their commitments to wider SDG objectives. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Zoe. That was really amazing, and really got to the core of why we need people and we need nature when it comes to NCS on the voluntary carbon market. So now we've heard the more theoretical overview of what high quality means, but let's take it to a little bit more of a practical place. And I'd like to ask Dharsono Hartono, who is CEO of PT Rimba Makmur Utama, who developed the Katingan Mentaya project in Indonesia. So Dharsono, can you tell us a little bit about the project, please?
Thank you, Jenica. Thank you for NCS for inviting me today. Maybe let's not share the screen first. I'm going to try to answer the project. So basically, 15 years ago, I started Katingan Mentaya project. One thing I learned about this project is you can see clearly the benefit of what we are doing, particularly protecting the environment against illegal logging, particularly fire, and more importantly, how we can work together with community to provide sustainable livelihood, to be more productive, not cutting the forest, teaching them to be a better farmer, a better fisherman. So I think the lesson learned from a high quality project is you have to have a mindset that you are learning every day, with a core principle that you are doing the right thing, you are solving climate change issue, you want to be equitable with the community, and more importantly, then you can save the biodiversity. So I think that's sort of like the core value of a very high quality, high integrity project. I treat this as I learn every day. I mean, I'm still learning. I'm not saying that we are, already know everything that we do, but I think with this, the fact is we, as a board of directors, me and Rezal, we go to the village, we become the person of, in charge of community. I think a lot of these things to show the real value of what a project can do, particularly how we can change behavior from people on the ground. Because we all know that all this NCS project, there's a lot of threat that coming to the project. Some of those threats are basically human driven, some of them are economical driven, some of them are regulation driven. So I think a lot of this thing has to be studied when you do a project and see how you can attack and work with the community. I feel that this 15 years of learning Katingan Mentaya project, I want to share to the world that there is a new way of doing business where we can be transparent, you can be equitable, you can serve a purpose, and you can be profitable. So I hope that with this NCS that we do, it really changed the mindset of how we move forward from business sector. Of course, it's controversial. You probably hear that a lot of volunteer carbon market is under scrutiny by the market. You see that the price of carbon credit, particularly in voluntary market, has been going up and down. But I think we need to have more projects like us so that we can share the knowledge, what we learn, what we can do together, and more importantly, clearly see the effect. I mean, as we speak today, the past 2 to 3 months, we've been fighting fire outside our area. And you can see it that, it's really clearly show that without us, this fire will eventually come and destroys all of this great ecosystem of peatland in Indonesia. I think with us, we've been managed, we'll be able to protect it. So there's a lot of things that we are doing, and we have to show to the world that this is a real challenge. It's not that easy to tell people not to burn their forests or burn their field, because that's how they have been doing their work and doing slash and burn. But I think we always are optimistic. We always look forward to do it and then work together with community. So I think we've been able to put a lot of fire out. Basically, there's a lot of fire happening outside our area. Then we work with community, and we work hard every day, and hopefully the rainy season will come eventually soon. So that's sort of like give you an idea of what we do. In addition to Katingan Mentaya project, I'm quite involved in the ASEAN Business Advisory Council. Maybe we can share the slide now, what's to talk about. So basically, as Indonesia is chairing ASEAN this year, we actually introduced a legacy project called ASEAN Alliance, Carbon Center of Excellence, and alliance called ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Market. Next. So, as you know, Indonesia is a chair of ASEAN this year. I think we still have another 2 months till the end of the year, or to end our chairmanship. So, and the fact is we've been able to successfully be part of B20 and G20 now with the ASEAN Business Advisory Business Advisory Council, and it has pushed for a greater public-private sector collaboration, right? So I think this is very key to what we do, and our chairman, Pak Arsyad, always believed that ASEAN should be the epicenter of growth. Next. And just want to give you an idea of what ASEAN, priority are. Basically, there are 5 priority areas that we look into this particular year. We have digital transformation, sustainable development, health, resilience, food security, and trade and investment facility. From the sustainable development part, there are 2 legacy programs that we're introducing this year. So legacy program is a program that we will continue to bring forward in the next chairmanship of ASEAN, where Laos will chair it, and then Malaysia will chair after that. So first is the ASEAN Net Zero Hub, and the second one is a Carbon Center of Excellence pertaining to carbon market. Next. Of this, Carbon Center of Excellence, we also launched a ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Market. I think AACM, which stands for ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Market, is aimed to promote scaling voluntary carbon market across ASEAN and to support implementation of compliance market in the region. As you know, we see that carbon credit is a path of decarbonization for this region. So with this alliance, we actually want to put a like-minded private sectors to work together so we can have a correct framework, the right mindset of how we define a good carbon project is all about. So working with NCS Alliance is one of the things that we do. I think the idea is we know that ASEAN region has some of the world's most valuable investable carbon stocks. For some of you to, the study shown that actually up to 35% of the world nature-based solution credit can come from this region, and Indonesia contributes 60% of that 35%. So we need to have a strong and robust ASEAN carbon market that will be part of the solution of decarbonization. So with ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Market, we aim to promote this scaling of a voluntary carbon market across ASEAN, and we are This will be a first private sector-led body to advocate for cross-border effort in the area of carbon market development. It will foster a regional ecosystem and act as a focal point for international partnership with activities including capacity building and technical assistance. Next, there are three lenses and activities that we focus on. First is the supply and generation. Second is intermediation and infrastructure. And last, demand and assurance. Well, I'll be happy to share this slide to everybody after this event, so you can take a look at it more detail. But I think the idea is there are a few key aims that we try to have is to improve capacity and quantity of project developers, to reduce intermediation costs and friction, and as well as to encourage buyers to consider ASEAN as their region to go. So I think there are a few key activities. I will not be able to lay it out one by one, that you see from each of these lenses. And I think, we want to have to promote a high integrity and high quality carbon project to even G7 and domicile buyers on international roadshow as well. So next, we have a robust leadership and governance structure. We have a distinguished governing body where basically all the 10 members of ASEAN Business Advisory Council will be part of this. We have a steering committee that where Indonesia sit on a permanent steering committee, and we have the steering committee which consists of current chair of ASEAN, previous or even the next ASEAN. The good news is we also have International Advisory Board that constitute of people who understand this business. So we have a lot of people to be part of this, and thank you, IBCSD as part of this governance. Next, I just want to show you sort of like what we have here. And then we have AITA as well as to be part of International Advisory Board. All of these are currently chaired, hosts by Bloomberg NEF as an institution. So they are part of our steering committee, and we have a lot of members part of this. And this, like I said, this is a private sector initiative, and we're looking forward to have our first steering committee in Dubai this coming COP. Next, just to give you an idea of what are the members that we have. And so I guess the key is, what's the next step? The next step is actually we want to invite more companies to be part of this alliance. Next, you can register through, you can register through this QR code, and then I'm the key person, and as well as my colleague Stephen can be reached. But I think the idea of ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Market is to galvanize and work together as a region. But not only ASEAN country, but around the world in terms of understanding and communicating what high quality and high integrity project is all about, which is what NCS is trying to do. We are focusing, of course, in nature-based solutions for now, but I think as an alliance in carbon market, we will look into other sectors as we grow. I think that's it for me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dharsono. That was a really illuminating presentation, both on, the excellent examples of high quality NCS projects in action through Katingan Mentaya, and then also, that more sort of regional context for the AACM. I'd like now to hand over to Bruce Kennedy, who is the Senior Portfolio Manager for Senior Carbon Portfolio Manager for BCG, who's going to tell us a little bit about why quality matters and give you some tips on how to set up a successful procurement strategy. So over to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Yannicka. Hi all, and nice to meet you. So I, just as a bit of an introduction to myself and BCG, I sit within the internal sustainability team at Boston Consulting Group, and a key part of my role is to purchase carbon credits for BCG's own use against their carbon footprint. In terms of BCG, in September 2020, in a landmark moment for BCG's history, we announced our commitment to achieve net zero impact by 2030. The primary focus of that climate programme is cutting our emissions per employee by 50% by 2025, and as we work towards that to 2030, to achieving net zero by 2030. However, a key aspect is science highlights it's not just enough to reduce emissions outputs. All global pathways to limit warming to 1.5 degree require the removal of hundreds of gigatons of CO2 over the century, and investment is needed now for us to be able to achieve that. And that's one of the key reasons why BCG look to support carbon credit projects currently. So we're a carbon neutral certified company, and to meet our net zero commitment by 2030, we're transitioning our portfolio from a combination of advanced and removal carbon credits to 100% removal credits in 2030, with a vast majority of them coming from nature climate solutions. So just in terms of, I'll just touch on quality before diving into the procurement approach, the 8 steps. So we've just heard from a number of the speakers about why quality is important and what high quality and best practice projects can look like. From a corporate standpoint, I think it's really important to emphasize why we see it as fundamental to support high quality projects. I think number one is as a business, we want to be putting our money towards projects which are going to deliver the greatest impact. And the greatest impact is going to come from these high quality projects. So the more we can support them, the greater impact we'll be having now. I think additionally, it's key for corporates to send that demand signal to the market. There's a huge range of quality in the voluntary carbon market at the moment, and it's receiving a lot of media scrutiny. For us, it's critical that corporate buyers really show what they deem as high quality and start pursuing those credits now to create that demand signal for investors to be able to start financing these higher quality projects and having that higher willingness to pay coming through. And then finally, I think reputational risk as well. It's really important as a corporate that we're clear on what projects we are supporting from a reputational risk. So if any scrutiny happens, we are able to stand by what we deem as high quality and really stand up to that sort of criticism and put out why we feel these projects are high quality. So I'll just jump into, so if we can just go back to perfect. So I'll just cover on this slide a bit about how to set up a carbon credit procurement structure within a corporate. And the NCS Alliance have developed this 8 steps, and I'll just touch on a few of these key steps today. I think the first one, strategy and budget. For me, this is a real critical one to get right at the start. If it's critical to ensure that your carbon credit strategy is embedded and part of your broader climate sustainability strategy of the business. And then it's really important to have that overarching strategy aligned within leadership within the business to get that buy-in. The next piece in terms of budget, that's been a critical piece for BCG. In 2020, when we announced our net zero commitment, we publicly put out what we expect to pay in terms of price, in terms of dollar per ton in 2025 and 2030 for carbon credits. And that's been really useful from a practical standpoint for us to be able to purchase credits on an ongoing basis. We've got that alignment with leadership of that forecasted dollar per ton for carbon credits, and we're able to work in the market to those forecasts and look to purchase for a number of years in advance. without having to go back to board decisions to get that sort of budget approved on an annual basis. In terms of, I'll just move on to point 2, team selection. So team selection is really important, and involving the relevant stakeholders early on in the process will ensure for a much smoother procurement process throughout on an ongoing basis. So it's really, really key to align with the services and roles within the business that you have. So I'm thinking of involving procurement, legal, risk team, all of those key stakeholders early in the process, so they can all come on that journey to understand what the voluntary carbon market is, the steps involved in purchasing carbon credits. So you're having those decisions throughout setting up the program, instead of having to have these discussions with these relevant teams when you've identified a project, and then it's going to be a lot more time consuming to go through those processes with those teams and get that alignment. Team selection is also key as well for internal, for a number of corporates starting off on this journey. You're unlikely to have that sort of technical expertise in carbon projects. And it's at this point, it's identifying external advisors who can provide that knowledge and expertise for you to be able to go through the procurement journey. Then step 3 is to develop your NCS criteria. And this is really critical step, and it's an evolving step. What you have as a criteria in day 1 is likely not going to be the same criteria in a couple of years, because best practice is evolving, market knowledge is continuing to develop. But why it's really key to have that company NCS criteria aligned before going to the market, for a couple of reasons. It means you can manage the procurement process a lot smoother, in that you can go to the market with a clear criteria of what you're looking to achieve, what you're looking to purchase. You're then able to also, once you've identified projects, you're also able to undertake your due diligence against that original criteria as well. It'll make it a lot more efficient, and really key to identify where you are on that. You can utilize best practice standards or build your own in-house, more advanced, and it's a real variety of what businesses take, what approaches businesses do. At BCG, we use best practice standards, and then we identified a trusted advisor. We worked with them to build up our own best practice criteria. And recently we've brought in some technical expertise in-house, and we've evolved that best practice criteria again. So we've been on that journey, and it'll be a very different, every corporate will start at a different point. I'll just jump on to, just conscious of time, so I'll just jump on to due diligence. It's really important for companies to take responsibility for doing the due diligence of projects. Companies are investing in these projects, and it's key that you're supporting the correct projects. There's a wide range of ways you can do that due diligence. Again, if you've got the in-house expertise, you can do it yourselves. But if you don't, you can go through the advisors route, or even now third-party rating agencies, which complete due diligence across the market on a wide variety of projects. I'd also just say, just on the due diligence piece, that doesn't just cover project due diligence. I think it's really important to complete that due diligence if you're going through suppliers as well, to understand their experience in the market, Have they visited these projects? What type are you purchasing the credits through the supplier on the primary market, so it's coming straight from the project, or is it on the secondary market, so that credit might have been traded a number of times, so you don't know what revenue is going back to the project. So it's key not just to look at the project, but also the supplier as well. And then just in terms of reporting and claims, we've touched on this at the start with Julia. In terms of reporting, it's key for us to build this trust within the voluntary carbon market. The companies, when reporting carbon credits, to be as transparent as possible, provide all of the details of the carbon credits you're using and how you're using them and what claims you're making as well. And in terms of claims, yeah, this is evolving landscape. The VCM have recently brought out a framework which is looking like it's going to be the industry standard, industry leader for that. And for them, key part of that is really the transparent reporting, and then also what claims a corporate can make as well. That's everything from my side.
Thank you, Bruce. I know it's tricky because that's a lot of information to get through in only 10 minutes, but you did really well to give that information very succinctly. And I just wanted to maybe add on the due diligence point that there is, a list of questions in the back of the buyer's guide, which corporates can use as a starting point to conduct their due diligence with the project. So I'll put the link in the chat as well, so you can see the guide that we've been, the buyer's guide that we've been referring to throughout this presentation as well. But now I want to talk to you a little bit more about implementation. Let me just get my slides. So, where are we? Okay. So, we've heard a lot about, how businesses can embed nature and people into their climate strategies, and obviously how businesses play a pivotal role in driving that positive change through the purchase of credits. And I'm sure you're thinking, that all sounds really, really amazing, but where do I even start with this? It's extremely, how do I navigate the complexity? How do I evaluate the multitude of options that are available to me? So today I'm going to show you how your business can actively engage in NCS through the NCS Procurement Hub. So what exactly is the Hub? Basically, it's an online platform, a one-stop shop, which is designed to help guide businesses through the process of procuring NCS, or natural climate solution, carbon credits. So the kind of key features of the Hub are content that has been curated by the experts related to the NCS procurement process. It basically provides this sort of safe space for learning and collaborating for businesses to achieve their corporate climate and nature goals. The Hub is supported by the NCS Alliance. So you've heard a lot about the NCS Alliance from Julia earlier. And then we also have a task force of dedicated experts in the field of NCS and the voluntary carbon market. So the four sort of key elements which are designed in the Hub to support you on your procurement journey are, well, first of all, knowledge. So this is an area of the Hub that's kind of like a library, with all of the information, all of the resources on the different topics that are related to NCS procurement. And as I said before, that's curated by the experts at the NCS Alliance, and it kind of distills all of the current best practice and key resources that'll help to guide a successful corporate procurement strategy. There's also conversations. So this is like a forum almost. It's like a safe space where you can chat, you can ask questions, you can exchange ideas and share opinions. You know, you can start a new thread or you can contribute to existing discussions. And then there's also an opportunity to vote on others' comments if you're interested in that particular topic and you want to see more content on it. The third element is groups. So groups are like mini communities within the hub. So that is dedicated to discussions around sort of specific topics, or it's linked to specific geographical locations. For example, we have a group on credits in the Amazon, but we also have one on REDD+. And then finally, we have events. So in the hub, we're conducting regular webinars, you know, similar to this one. And one additional sort of key feature is that we'll have these one-to-one clinics. So imagine having like a one-on-one session with an expert in the field. You can go and you can ask them, you know, questions specifically tailored to your business's needs. And you'll be able to sign up for slots and ask them directly any questions that you have. So we have a whole schedule of clinics coming up on a variety of different topics. For example, Article 6, biodiversity, and credits insurance. So a real mix, and you know, really interesting schedule of events. So joining the hub can be a really sort of strategic move for your business. You know, there's access to that sort of, you know, learning opportunities in that sort of peer-to-peer learning exchange format. You'll be able to connect with industry leaders. You'll be able to, you know, share insights and learn from the experiences of your peers as well. And then also it's a place where you can stay informed, because as you've heard, you know, the NCS landscape is alive. It's ever evolving, and staying informed is crucial. So the hub ensures that you have access to all of the latest industry developments. But more importantly, there is no commitment. You know, it's open to any business who is seeking to purchase high quality NCS credits as an additional measure to their decarbonization efforts. And there's no cost. So currently, the fee has been waived for the first 350 companies who sign up for the hub. And as you know, WBCSD's global network partners, we are inviting you to become, you know, one of the first sort of tranche of so-called early adopters. So now that you know the benefits, I hope you're wondering, you know, how do I join? So it's very easy. You can go to www.ncsprocurementhub.org and send us a request to join. And also to mention that up to 3 people per company can participate. So feel free to share the link with 2 of your colleagues. And once your business has been approved, you can then activate your account. So you'll get an email which requests you to complete your profile and then sign into the hub. And that's it really. And then you're a member of the hub. You can explore, you can connect with your peers, you can read content that's aligned to your interests and your goals, and you can sign up for relevant events. So really, to conclude, the NCS Procurement Hub, it's you know, not just a platform, it's a place where you can really ensure that you're aligning with best practice when it comes to NCS credit procurement. And that can really help to sort of revolutionize your sustainability journey. We have a Q&A coming up, so put any questions or thoughts or anything you might have in the chat, and I'm here to provide any additional information. So let me stop sharing and see if there's any questions coming up.
Well,
okay, so I think we'll just jump straight into the Q&A portion. And then as we go through, if you have any questions, feel free to put your hand up, unmute yourself, or you can just type it in the chat. So the first question is, as Indonesia has just announced the IDX carbon market, how do you see the alignment of NCS Alliance on this to enable the international or cross-border voluntary carbon market in Indonesia? I wonder if Dharsono or Julia, you want to take that one.
I can answer that, Jenica. So I think if you look at what our president's speech, right? He make it very clear. Two out of 3 points that he make in the speech when he launched the Indonesian stock exchange, Indonesian carbon exchange is one. Indonesia wants to embark a process that, particularly from a project credit perspective, that is internationally recognized certification. So I think this is something that we want to, in terms of getting the investment. And then on the second part of his speech is talking about voluntary carbon market as well. So I think, it's to answer this question is, you will probably see in the next few months, there will be a lot of, progress being made based on this speech that the president is making. So I think, for sure that we want to create a carbon market that is robust, internationally recognized, and acknowledging voluntary carbon market. So I hope that, this is just the beginning. We launch one project, and then I think there will be more to come.
Great, thank you, Dharsono. Julia, I noticed you came on camera. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, just wanted to say that as NCS Alliance, our role will be to help businesses, so from Indonesia, but also internationally, understand all the different systems that are out there. We are not gonna, work necessarily be part of the system, but I think one of the key let's say messages that we send to all stakeholders, so including therefore our, the colleagues, and I know Dharsono is our point of contact, is also that we want every system to be extremely of high integrity, but not just on the climate, but also making sure that they recognize that some projects actually deliver biodiversity in social gain. So how can, we take a different take, a different look at certain type of credits that deliver more than just climate mitigation outcomes. So it might be more a question for Dharsono, actually.
I don't know, Dharsono, if you have any response to that.
Otherwise, I was picking up. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, no. So I was just asking, how this the future exchange that you have that has been announced, what are the plans to make it also sensitive to the fact that a certain category of credits, so the NCS category, is not just about climate mitigation outcomes, but as Zoe said, they have also 2 other core benefits, which are biodiversity gains and social. So how do we help, create also these exchanges in a way that from the, outset, they really create that knowledge and awareness that, there is a separate kind of category of credits that has this potential?
I think we will be definitely work on it, in a way that to distinguish that part, because I know for sure this, Indonesia carbon market will be dominated by nature-based solutions. So I think it's a great idea. Of course, right now the system is in place that it's still based on what we call a SPEGRK, which is like a verified carbon unit or PCU equivalent. But I'm sure that we can figure out in terms of how to distinguish that or to differentiate, just like you mentioned. I think even in Vera, there's still a lot of things with the CCBA and other part that is, that is distinguished that. I'm sure that Indonesia, as a country and a certification authority, they will eventually get into that as well.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to work with you and test some ideas on how to make more visible these benefits, because I think the more visible they are, the more we can push demand to recognize, and invest.
Yeah. And Dharsono, I guess going back to you, there's another question here about whether there's any plans for Katingan Mentaya to be registered in the Indonesian Carbon Exchange.
Actually, we're in the process of registering to Indonesian registry system. So I think you need to be registered in Indonesian registry system. We still are finalizing the process. But once it's that, then technically, Indonesia will be able to issue the PCU, which is SPEGRK, we call it, and then it can be traded to the carbon exchange in Indonesia. So I still we're working on that, and while monitoring and see how the the other project that is ongoing today have been going through the same process and see if they create more liquidity to the carbon exchange.
Great. And then just finally, Dharsono, and then I promise I'll pick on somebody else. I just wondered if you had any more thoughts on how governments in countries where projects are implemented, like Indonesia, can better support and incentivize the voluntary carbon market for NCS credits.
I think it's very important that the government acknowledge that there is a carbon market, a voluntary carbon market. That's very important, right? I think a lot of people, I mean, if not only Indonesia, there's a sort of like misunderstanding of what voluntary carbon market role. And I think that's very important for the government to understand that voluntary carbon market is just like its name said, it's voluntary. So that means that, whatever the achievement, it's more on a voluntary basis. Hence, technically the NDC that voluntary carbon market produce, or credit that voluntary carbon market produce can be used for origin country NDC. It's part of their sovereignty to claim. So I think that's something that is still very important for a lot of developing country because they still need to achieve the NDC. So I think that's something that we have to make sure that the government is aware of it because there's a misconception of voluntary carbon market is not part of, and that will take away the NDC of a country, then it's going to be very hard because Indonesia is still prioritize the NDC first before selling the carbon credit abroad.
Yeah, thanks, Dharsono. I wonder if this next question might be for Linden or maybe Bruce. A lot of the conversations today have been about, weighing up the potential risks associated with purchasing NCS credits. Do you have any tips on how businesses can help to mitigate this risk and, ensure the credibility of their claims? Linden, I don't know if you're still here, but maybe that you want to take this one.
Yeah, there is a degree of risk, but there's also a lot of guidance out there. And so I think it's a case of being very intentional, being very thoughtful, bringing along your leadership along why this is a good reason, and then being, following the steps, really. Yes, there is a degree of risk, but once I think the company at a strategic level sets out why this is important, then has the plans in place through clear net zero strategies or transition plans, in accordance with the sort of guidance being set out, executes it, and is transparent about that and reports on it, then I think you can reduce the risk over time, but it needs to be done in an intentional and thoughtful way. So I guess that's my sort of answer to that.
Mm-hmm. Bruce, do you have any thoughts you wanted to share on that?
Yeah, I think similar to what Linden said, just as a first point, it's key that it's embedded in your overarching climate roadmap. It's only one part, purchasing carbon credits, and that significantly mitigates the risks for a business if you've got that in place. I think on a project level, I think there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of new guides, best practice guides coming out, and rating agencies, a lot of services being developed. I think it's key to do your own research, be comfortable with what you're purchasing, and have clear in not just the end product of what you're purchasing, but why you're purchasing that. And then I think that also really helps mitigate the risks, because you've got that you don't just have that end product of carbon credits, you've got that whole step process which you can clearly communicate of how you got to that journey, how you got to that end result, and a lot of the key pieces in that journey for businesses, because if you get the journey right, the vast majority of those end decisions are going to be right. But if you skip parts in that journey, in due diligence, etc., then a higher chance of what you purchase in the end could come back with higher risks.
No, thanks, Bruce. That's I wonder maybe if I can keep it back on you and just ask you to tell us a little bit more about the relationship between the various actors in the VCM, such as project developers, the investors, the carbon crediting programs, things like that.
Yeah, it's a very dynamic ecosystem at the moment, with new players coming in, and new guidance coming out with IBCM looking to do launching their core carbon principles, and then VCMI, etc. It is a challenge to keep up to date with a lot of it, but I think it's really important to try to stay as up to date as possible. In terms of relationships between project developers, investors, supply partners, as a corporate, for us, it's really important to understand those relationships when we are purchasing credits. Our end goal is trying to have the biggest impact. So if what we are paying for a carbon credit is only a small value is getting back to the project, and actually that project's not utilizing it across people, nature, biodiversity, etc., then that's not great for us. So what we try to do is really see that sort of where those funds are flowing, and that covers the investors, suppliers, and project developers. So I think from a corporate standpoint, that's key.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Bruce. I'm just checking the chat to see if there's any. I think we've time for maybe one last question. So I don't know if anybody has anything they want to ask, any burning questions. Otherwise, maybe we'll close by asking our speakers just to share sort of one final tip or advice for business, you know, who are looking to get involved in the voluntary carbon market. So, Julia, start with you.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a challenge, and we do speak with a lot of companies that have already their big homework to do to address their own footprint, and they have to decarbonize, and then we're asking them to invest in more. But I would say every ton counts, every little support that a companies can do in supporting projects beyond their value chain. That means projects that would not be financed any other way, and the way to do this is through the voluntary carbon market. I would say even if you start small, think about it, because it's a contribution that otherwise will never reach these places, and because here we're really talking about nature and people that also deliver carbon. So you have a fantastic system that is growing in Indonesia, so you also have a lot of opportunities to contribute to the Indonesia NCS world, and you have great experts, and we are more than happy to accompany you with ideas on how to set the your criteria and so on. But I would say key message: every time counts.
Bruce, 30 seconds on message.
Yeah, very similar actually. I would just say start the process now. Time's critical, and be proud of what your business does. There's a lot of very, very good projects out there now which need support, and don't shy away from purchasing carbon credits because there's media scrutiny. Be proud of supporting these projects which need the finance now and doing great work.
Yeah. Zoe?
Thank you. I would just, I would say very much the same, and see this as an opportunity to really seek the riches that there are in the ASEAN region and in Indonesia specifically. Fantastic sites to support, not only where you can address aspects of your pathway to net zero, but also really bring about incredible impacts for people and nature in the archipelago. So I think look for the local riches would be my suggestion, and seek out really strong protection projects.
Great, thanks, Zoe. And Linden?
The trouble with going last is that I think all the good things have been said, but I would encourage action now. There is support there, and we just need to get it done.
Fab. And then I'm going to hand over to Dharsono, who can give his final reflections and then also close us out if you don't mind. Thank you, Dharsono.
Thank you, Jenica. I think the key is go beyond just compliance. I think the key is we know how important this climate change issue is. You know, I think we need people to have the same like-minded people to just go beyond compliance because it's good for the environment. It's actually good for your brand. I think you just have to have a conviction, pick the right project, you know, show real benefit and go with it. So I guess with that, I'll be happy to close this event. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of IBCSD, I'd like to express our deepest appreciation and gratitude to all our great speakers today. These are all good friends, Julia, Zoe, Bruce, as well as Linden. And I think it's good to see you. And we just want to let you know that how important this issue is for Indonesia to move forward. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of nature-based solution, and I hope with this workshop we really give a lot of information for the corporate, particularly in terms of the corporate that wants to decarbonize and want to be net zero. So I think our workshop today is more than just about carbon credit and numbers. It is about nurturing a profound connection with nature and recognizing its pivotal role in our fight against climate change. Indonesia, with its extraordinary ecological diversity, holds a special place in this endeavor. It boasts some of the world's most invaluable natural resources and biodiversity, just like we mentioned earlier. I also want to share that Indonesia has made a notable progress in establishing the carbon exchange as we see. So I hope that, working together with NCS, as in my capacity as Kadin Net Zero Hub chair, as well as Carbon Center of Excellence, we can actually use this platform of carbon exchange to show more projects, particularly Indonesian project, for more buyers to come here and transact. I guess just to close, I just want people to be optimistic. I think there is a way of solving this climate change issue that, but we have to do it. We have to do it quickly. We have to do it soon. And don't shy and don't get scared. There's a lot of noises out there, but I think like everybody mentioned and everybody agreed that the way forward to reach that 1.5 degree Celsius, cannot go without nature. So with that, I really thank you for all of you who attend and stay throughout this workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. So do we have pictures? Do we have pictures together?
Yes. Let's turn on our camera, everyone, and take a picture, please.
Yeah, let's take a picture. Nurina, can you help to lead the photo session?
Such a cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So please, ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody to share their videos. And let me see, we have to put...
So I will count to take the picture. Everybody ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'll take another one. 1. Should we wait for more people to turn on the camera? Okay, I'll count. 1, 2, 3. All right.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pak Dharsono, Julia. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Julia. Bruce. Bye.